Week 1 of the LCS is fast approaching, and I have some pretty differing expectations for each player on TSM, so let's talk some TSM. That is right, the LCS is back in just a couple of days, and it's time to finally watch this TSM team that we have all been kind of shaky about at best. Will they exceed expectations? Will they not? I want to know from you guys before we get started here. What are your expectations from each player? Please let me know in the comments section below. I'm going to be giving you guys mine in based off of which player I have the lowest expectations for first, and then which one I have the highest for last. And while you're doing that, if you guys wouldn't mind leaving a like, a subscribe, and potentially hitting that bell icon so you guys don't miss any of the daily content that we're putting out now between myself and some newcomers, potentially somebody named Varno and Brock, making their way onto the channel as well, doing daily gaming content, whether it's LCS, whether it's, I don't know, the new Legend of Zelda that's going to be coming out, or potentially even the new, I don't know, Fire Emblem that recently came out as well. So if that's kind of stuff that interests you, along with esports, please, let us know first off, and secondly, hit that subscribe button so you can see it all. Moving on, I think you all know who's going to be my lowest expectation player, and that's going to be Boogie. Listen, I am not just trying to constantly push him down, because I think he's probably going to be better than I'm giving him credit for, than literally anybody else is giving him credit for. I'm sure he's going to be nervous on day one. I'm not going to overreact unless if he's like, I don't know, having like one of the most abysmal weekends we have ever seen. There's a lot of pressure on him, but luckily he is surrounded by some solid veterans. And I think that, he is going to be a player that is, I think, luckily going to be able to lean heavily on his solo queue experience in order to try to push this team ahead for a win. Luckily, we're also starting against a team that's pretty bad. So I'm really hopeful that when I, do my Thursday episode of this, that we can talk about fun things with this team, because when it comes to Boogie, my expectations are pretty low. I mean, there's a lot of aggressive junglers in the LCS right now, and especially at the position, right? I think Xin Zhao is going to be there. We're going to see some Graves, stuff like that. And I really wonder what this is going to mean for Boogie. He likes to engage. I would prefer not to see him on something like a Graves, but my expectations are, I guess if we're ranking it out of 10, my expectations are only like a 2. So it shouldn't be very hard to exceed those expectations for him. And as long as he can just kind of, I don't know, stay with the game plan, stick with the game plan, right? Whatever it may be, just stick with it, Boogie, and then allow the rest of your teammates to do their thing. Be another support essentially for right now, and just let yourself kind of learn and get maybe more opportunities to carry as the season goes on. My next player is Solo. Big surprise here. Guys, listen, I do love Solo. I think that he is an awesome dude, and I think that he is very good at maintaining a weak side. But if some of these LEC matches that I've seen are any indication, things are going to get a little bloody in the top lane. And that is why my expectations are a little bit lower. I'm not seeing a ton of things like Ornns or Renekton's or, whatever else you might want to see. I think you're going to see a lot of Cassante, a lot of Jax, a lot of, maybe even some Irelias, Fioras, I don't know, just a lot more carry style top laners, and that's not really his thing, at least not that we have seen recently in the recent past. So I'm very intrigued to see if this will be a meta where he can thrive potentially, but again, my expectations are pretty low. So they're just above Boogie's. I got him at a 3 out of 10 right now. So again, it's not that I don't believe in him as a player necessarily. What I don't believe in is that this meta is going to fit him well and allow for him to be what I think is his best, which is, a siding top laner. I think maybe once we switch to more of like an AD carry scaling type meta, hopefully, here in a couple of weeks, then that should be enough to get Solo, back on his groove. But hey, again, I would love to be wrong on this one. The next one is Neo. And there are going to be, I'm sure, a lot of questions about Neo and, what are we going to see from him? This meta is certainly going to be different. And I'm serious. Like, that the first freaking game we watched of, Western League of Legends had Heimerdinger, Ashe, Jhin, and Varus in the bot lane. Not your typical carry champions. And Neo is not known for being somebody who can play those champions overly well. Like, he's not, those are just more supportive type, characters, like, in terms of the AD carrying. Like, they are able to lock people up, they're able to slow them. It's not as much about being able to be overly aggressive, right, and take over games. And so, while I don't think that that's going to be necessarily a bad thing, because I'm sure Neo's been practicing it a lot, I think it's going to really depend on Chime, and how he does. And so that's why my expectations for Neo are going to be 5 out of 10, right? We're using that 10 scale for some reason. It's going to be a 5 for Neo because, I think that he, I think that he can make those changes. And I think, again, it's all about support for him. It's been very clear since the first day he stepped on stage. If he is given a support that can help him get through the laning phase, that can help him scale and get into a good position team fighting wise and keep him alive, he can absolutely dish out damage. If not, then he kind of falls behind and just tries not to die, essentially. So it's not an explosive level of play, but I think we're all hoping that he can be kind of our secret carry that people just were not anticipating coming into this season. That leads me to Chime. And Chime is like an 8 out of 10 for my expectations, because I have him ranked really high, and I still think that might not be high enough. After what we saw, the changes that were made on this team, and the confidence that he brought, I think the direction, the leadership that he was able to, personify, I guess, maybe even, like, he just looked great, and he was constantly in the right position, able to make plays. I mean, if we had, I think, a more consistent bot lane, and I think, if things had kind of maybe shuffled a little differently for us, where he had come in early on, I think that we actually had a chance to push for top 4. And that's crazy, considering how bad we were for the majority of 2022. Chime is going to have to be that guy. And if there's somebody who I'm like super confident in this meta with a lot of off meta picks, or not off meta, off expectation picks, like, again, we're talking about the Heimer, the Jhin, sorry, that's the word I was looking for. Those kinds of picks, I think, are going to suit him extraordinarily well. So my guy Chime here, I got high expectations for you, dude, but I think that you are going to be able to live up to them. And that takes me to our last one. Maple. Same thing. 8, maybe 9. I think he's going to have to be the rock for this team. I think he is in the one position that is going to provide the most comfort in terms of champions that he knows, right? The Ryze, Sylas, Syndra, Victor, these control mage mid laners that will allow him to scale. And, I think that he's going to have to be big, because mid lane is one of the weakest positions in the LCS. Arguably the weakest position in the LCS from top to bottom. And I think that if they can play through Maple, and if Maple can find that form that he had while on Flash, while on Flash Wolves, that got him, attention from the LPL, the LCK, then I think that he legitimately could carry us to a few more victories than most people are thinking. And that's why when I did my predictions last week, a lot of my hope was on these last 2 players. If they can be good enough in the strong positions that they are in, personally, right, then I think that they can be enough to push TSM over the edge. But I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm really genuinely intrigued to hear what your expectations are for each one of these players. I would love for these last two to meet my expectations, and for, Solo, Boogie, and Neo to exceed my expectations. But we will have to see. I don't know. I'm just excited to get back into the game. So, yeah, with that, I'll see you guys on the next one.